Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your involvement today. I think it's a great discussion so far. It's my honor to introduce our keynote speaker for today's event, someone that everybody in the room knows well, Lieutenant Governor Tim Murray. Lieutenant Governor Murray has been a true friend, not only of mass housing, but for all of us that are involved in housing, and we are lucky, each and every one of us, to have him at our side. Lieutenant Governor Murray has a vision for this state that is both practical and forward-thinking. In partnership with Governor Patrick, he's shown a great ear for the policy ideas that make sense, and his focus on those ideas is helping lead the state in a very positive direction during this challenging economic time. Let's talk a little straight talk here about the Lieutenant Governor and this administration. They know housing. They care about housing, and they know about the importance of a strong real estate market and the role that it plays in a healthy economy. Now, that's easy to say because we say that all the time, but the Patrick Murray administration, it's just not talk, it's action. Action on things like housing for veterans, making sure that the people who are taking care of us can access capital in the mortgage market, and the challenges that being homeless in this state provide to people. And the home buyer tax credit, which Dr. Belsky talked about a few minutes ago, to name just a few. In particular, as it relates to the home buyer tax credit, it was the Lieutenant Governor who brought mass housing together with the realtors for a very successful collaboration to enhance the use of the home buyer tax credit, to monetize that and bring that up front to create more affordable home ownership opportunities for families all across the state and to make it even easier to buy a home. Lieutenant Governor Murray also serves as the chair of the Interagency Council on Housing and Homelessness and works to ensure that all residents of the Commonwealth have access to a stable and affordable place to call home. The Council has partnered aggressively with DHCD in working through federal money that has been committed to the state on the issues of homelessness, and he's created several interagency working groups to address the issues of housing needs and supply and asset development for those who are more challenged. Prior to being elected Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth, Tim Murray served 3 terms as mayor of Worcester and also chaired the Worcester School Committee. Lieutenant Governor Murray's service spans many, many years, and his commitment to making government more responsive to every citizen has been the great hallmark of that service. So won't you please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Governor Tim Murray.
Thank you, Tom, and it's a pleasure to be here with 2 great organizations, and I'm just excited to get some of the feedback at the end of the day, and when Secretary Bielecki and follow-up conversations with Tom and the Mass Association of Realtor Leadership to really hear, take some of the ideas and suggestions and from the discussion and learn what we can continue to do to work together. We've had a great history in working with mass housing on a range of issues. As Tom alluded to, I chair the Governor's Advisory Committee on interagency. I lead up the Interagency Council on Housing and Homelessness. Mass housing has been there with resources and guidance and support as we have completely realigned the manner in which and how we deliver services to those who are homeless. And we're doing it as we speak, implementing a home-based program that rather than warehousing people in hotel motels or in congregate shelters, we are trying to get them out with some type of form of rental assistance out into the communities where you represent, and then getting them the supportive services to stabilize a family situation, having flexibility because each family's or individual's situation is different. And the reason in terms of how and why they might have fallen into homelessness is different. Majority, believe it or not, are people who only find themselves in that type of situation once in their lives. It's not the recidivism maybe that sometimes people maybe have that mistaken impression on. And so we have worked hard, and Mass Housing has been a partner from day one in helping us facilitate that conversation, which isn't easy because there's a lot of stakeholders and people who genuinely care about, is this an effort to kind of disenfranchise people or families who might need assistance? And absolutely it's not the case. As someone who's worked in this, coming out of college and worked for several years as a housing search worker, trying to get people into affordable rents, working with realtors, working with landlords, working with housing authorities and others, I know how important it is that when you can quickly fashion a solution for an individual and family, the quicker they are and provide them the services they need, the faster they are able to get on a pathway to self-sufficiency. And we are making a lot of progress in that. In a very difficult time. I would tell you unequivocally that if it were not for the economic crisis, we would have people out of our hotel, motel, shelters, and I think even significantly reducing the number of beds in our hotel, in our shelter, congregate and scattered site shelter programs. And our goal with the legislature and others is to work on a housing-based program going forward. Similarly, working with Mass Housing, I appreciate their support. I chair the Governor's Advisory Committee on Veteran Services, and just would ask as you go about your business today if you could say a little prayer or keep in your thoughts the family of Stephen Gutowski, who is from Plymouth, who's being buried today. Governor Patrick is attending the funeral. I was at the wake over the weekend. Plymouth is a community that's lost 7 men since September 11th. Across the Commonwealth, we have seen some of the best and brightest and some of our incredible veterans and military families. And with this reliance in this particular, in Iraq and Afghanistan and the war on terror, we have an unprecedented reliance on our National Guard and Reserve. These are people who are now doing, in some cases, 4, 5, 6, 7 tours. Leaving their families, and it is really important that we provide the supports and be aware of the sacrifices that they're making on our behalf, but in particular today the Gutowski family have given the supreme sacrifice and true Massachusetts hero. Also on the Mass Association Realtor front, we have also worked together on issues, whether it be with Mass Housing on taking advantage of the part of the federal stimulus bill is the home buyer tax credit, and we work with Mass Housing and the Mass Association of Realtors to come up with a program that allowed more people to leverage that tax credit, which we think it was very important, and I know hearing from many of your members was important in helping us get through what was a very difficult patch, while acknowledging we still have challenges ahead and in front of us. Working with you, like a number of others, advocated that tax credit continue. Unfortunately, it did not, but we will continue to try to make the case as that being a good investment. And then similarly, the copper theft bill, continuing education issues with the Mass Association of Realtors, and with everyone in the room, how do we continue to focus on those communities that have been hit particularly hard because of the foreclosure crisis. In our second term, one of the initiatives that we have ramped up is our focus on gateway cities, 25 cities across the Commonwealth that are particularly important to the continued growth that we are seeing in Massachusetts in terms of moving out of this recession. These cities drive regional economies, but on the flip side, we know these cities have been hit hard, or the hardest by the foreclosure crisis. And the sooner we can get those properties addressed, the sooner we get people buying and back in the market as well. So that is an issue that we need to continue to collaborate and have conversation about as we move our administration's Gateway Cities agenda forward. I also want to thank the Mass Association of Realtors, particularly those in Western Mass, who responded, along with so many public employees who are often maligned, but a lot of public employees who stepped up in the aftermath of the tornado and hurricane and helping us relocate families and individuals who were without housing. We were able to work in a very timely fashion to get so many of those people into housing, and the realtors were a key part of that effort. Before I just talk a little bit about the economic situation, and then I want to make sure we've got some time for some comments or questions as well. I also want to thank the Mass Association of Realtors for their table for the Welcome Home license plate. It is consistent, and I see Paul it's consistent with our efforts. I say regularly, government has a role to play. Oftentimes it's facilitating the conversation, convening people together. We can oftentimes make limited strategic investments. But in any problem we face as a state, as a society, as a community, as a country, it's a partnership that gets things done. And we are taking that approach around issues of housing and homelessness. It is engaging the philanthropic and faith-based communities. It's nonprofits. It is different levels of government. It is the business community, the realtors, who we are asking, and in many cases are participating on our regional networks to end homelessness around the state. So we firmly believe almost on any issue that we're trying to tackle, you need that public-private partnership. And I would suggest to you that cornerstone of that partnership is one of the reasons why Massachusetts is coming out of this economic downturn at a much faster rate than the rest of the country. 7.4% unemployment, still too high for anyone who is unemployed or underemployed, but we are moving in the right direction. And I think it is in part because before this downturn hit, working with people in the legislature, and I know Senator Chandler, Harriet Chandler, has joined us, we made a series of investments which dovetail nicely with the private sector. It's inconvenient. I know it's a complete pain in the neck because I drive around the state probably more than anybody. But you see unprecedented work and investment going into our public highways and roads and our rail infrastructure, our maritime infrastructure, our airports. Nearly $1 billion worth of work taking place last year and this year between the state bond bill, transportation bond bill, the accelerated bridge program, fixing bridges, and then laying on top of that some of the federal stimulus money. That's putting over 30,000 people, primarily, a majority of which are in the private sector, to work as we contract out this work. Private sector companies are hungry for it, oftentimes coming under bid, and they're putting people to work. Various investing in the life sciences and biotech, growing jobs there, clean energy, 5 pieces of legislation to encourage programs, and we include in clean energy weatherization, putting money into the housing bond bill, all of those things, putting people to work. Higher ed, I was with the governor at North Adams, at Mass College of Liberal Arts, formerly North Adams State, building a new science building, $40 million plus. The first new academic building in 40 years on that campus. 40 years on that campus. So we are investing through the higher ed bond bill in science buildings and academic buildings, redoing older buildings on those campuses. Virtually every one of our state colleges and universities, public, the UMass system, our state universities, and our community colleges. There is construction going on in most instances in academic centers and classrooms, our chemistry labs, all biology labs, all of these things as we speak, again, putting people to work. And that's what we need to try to continue to do, and both Mass Housing and the Mass Association of Realtors have been partners in that effort, in facilitating that public-private partnership in and around the issue of housing. And I know you're going to be having some discussion with Secretary Bielecki, who will be here, Barry Bluestone, who I saw real quick, who's going to be talking as well. And we've partnered with Barry on several different issues, one in particular as it relates to jobs, and jobs that pay a wage, that allow people to pursue the American dream, which includes buying a home, around manufacturing. Manufacturing is, I believe, Barry, correct me if I'm wrong, the 5th largest employer in the Commonwealth. Jobs being added, as we've seen in the last year and a half, slowly as a result of the downturn, paying more in median income than education and healthcare, which I think surprises some people, in an area where we have people aging out. So we need to get more workers retrained in the manufacturing. And today's manufacturing is very different than maybe what it was for our people in our families who might have been at it in the past. Clean technology, computerization, but still incredibly important for us. So the economy and jobs is first and foremost on our minds. We know it's on yours, and we want to work with you and look forward to ideas and suggestions that come from the symposium today that will help us understand what we can do with you to get the housing market moving again, what we can do to push in that area, what we can do to get jobs, period, across the Commonwealth, continuing the trend that we've seen in Massachusetts. Revenues, as people go back to work, are coming back, not as quickly again as we would like, but they're moving in the right direction. And that takes some of the pressure off. But we are concerned about what's happening in Washington as we speak. If there are disproportionate hits on health care and defense spending and higher ed, that is going to hurt us, not only in potentially people losing their jobs with particular companies or institutions, but there are also elements of potential cuts there that could hit our state budget as well. So we are closely monitoring and watching what goes on there and encouraging cooperation and bipartisanship, which is desperately needed. I mentioned a little bit about transportation, if that's an area as well, along with kind of investment in our infrastructure, housing being one of it. Well, we know it puts people to work now, and as I said, most instances in the private sector, so we want to make sure that there's a balanced approach and not any disproportionate hits taken in the discussions in Washington. So I want to make sure we get some time for questions and comments before I head back to Boston. I was hoping I wouldn't have to go to Boston at all today, but a meeting that I thought was going to get canceled didn't get canceled, so we're here for the duration. We'll be heading in after this, but before I go, just want to see if there's any questions or comments.
Lieutenant Governor, Kevin Sears from Springfield and the Mass Association of Realtors. The first thing is I'd like to thank you and your administration for leading by example and being open to all of us in the room. And it trickles down to the Secretaries Tina Brooks and Greg Bielecki. And I, for one, appreciate your willingness and openness to have a dialogue with us to help solve the problems here in Massachusetts. So thank you.
No, well, we appreciate it. And we've tried to and regularly met with the leadership of the Mass Association of Realtors because we know you're on the front lines. You cover every region of the state. And that is something that I am immensely proud of in the 5 years that we're in government. I know, and I'm not naive, that people are not going to agree with each and every decision. Some people may not agree with any decisions we make. But I think most people would, who are objective, regardless of any political philosophy, would concede is that we have been an administration led by the governor, myself, that have been out in every region of the state. Because we need to think holistically. If the state is going to continue to grow and expand jobs, we need to kind of broaden out broaden out and connect, make connections that facilitate that cross-pollination of where people can live, work, and seek an education. If you understand the history of our Commonwealth, we have seen that growth over the decades, go just from Suffolk County to 128 to 495. I think one of the reasons Worcester was one in the Boston Business Journal's top 10 communities in the country in terms of job growth. Boston was number 1 last quarter. Worcester was number 3. And I think as you drive around, you see all the constructions and cranes in the air. It's because that growth is moving this way. And we want to make sure that the Merrimack Valley and the North Shore and the South Coast and the South Shore and Western Mass become part of that growth as well. So the realtors are a big part of that, how we sell our communities, how we know what we can be doing to invest strategically and be responsive. And it's been great to work with your team.
Lieutenant Governor Dominic Mosigliano, Worcester Eastside CDC. I've been the director there for the last 13 and a half years, and throughout that time, the state has been, through the Department of Housing and Community Development, has been an excellent partner in all of the housing development that we've done. One of the things that has been fortunate is that there's been a promotion over the years of home ownership. And that has come to a halt in the last couple of years, where DHCD has put essentially a freeze on home ownership funding. And I'm hoping that as a result of things, conferences like this, and the awareness that home ownership is a critical piece to our neighborhoods, that perhaps DHCD will change that freeze and start funding home ownership projects again. Yeah,
I just want to. Virtually with the economic. The Great Recession, the worst since the 1930s, almost every aspect of the budget, with the exception of Chapter 70, which is money for our schools, public schools, local aid, we have had to cut in some shape, manner, or form, or put a hold on program in almost every line item in the budget, and that includes some great programs out there. And hopefully, with Secretary Bielecki here later today, you can flesh that out and make the case with him a little bit, because he is the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development, and lay out some ideas how we can be working with you, Mass Housing, and others to promote home ownership. I firmly believe, and I think the administration does, that it is key and an important part of how we grow and get things back going. I know our CDCs and in many cases in our gateway cities have been really great partners on the foreclosure piece and working with so many of you, and so it has to be a piece of the puzzle, and certainly open to that. People want to eat. Well, if there's no further comments or questions, thank you, and I hope I saw the license plates out there. Hopefully people will participate in that program. That's a great example of that public-private partnership that we need on a lot of fronts, and thank you for being active members of your association, again, to the whole Mass Housing team for your support as well on a range of issues. And I mentioned the veterans programs with Mass Housing. They have been with Mass Housing created a loan program specifically for our veterans who are returning. So that's a great tool we want to make sure that all of our realtors are aware of if they're not already. And I'll let Tom or someone from Mass Housing get the word out on that. And it's great to be with you this afternoon and with Senator Chandler as well. Thank you.